Alright guys, so today I'm going to be doing oil changes on both my vehicles actually. I'll do it in two separate videos so you don't gotta sit through both. Kind of go over some oil, some filters, just some stuff like that, stuff you'll need for it. So I'll start with the oils and the filters. There are different types of oil, different qualities of oil. So do your research, figure out what you like. Excuse me. There are junk oils and there are junk filters, so please just don't stick anything in your cars. Ask around and just kind of see about it. I do know for sure, I'll give you this, Ram filters are one of the junk filters. When the filter gets plugged, instead of opening a bypass valve and allowing your oil to still flow, it'll actually stop your oil flow and cause problems. I work in a shop and I've seen a couple cars that come in with the oil light on and no oil pressure, and it's if they have a Ram filter, we change it and it's usually fine. So with that being said, we'll get into some of the oils and filters and stuff. So here, this is for my truck. It's a diesel. I've heard some good stuff about the Rotella. People say they can get like 300 to 500,000 miles if they keep using Rotella on their diesels. This here, I like Castrol GTX. That's going to be going in my minivan. So the weight of oil is something you have to pay attention to. It'll say on your oil cap sometimes what weight oil you're supposed to have. You can ask the guys at O'Reilly's or AutoZone or wherever you go. They'll tell you. But you got to make sure you get the right oil in there. The weight of oil is how thick the oil actually is. So it's really important for oil pressure and to keep your engine running well. My diesel takes 1540, which is actually pretty normal for diesels. So that's why I'm using that in my truck. So each one of my vehicles takes a different filter. My truck filter is a regular style canister filter. I guess that's what I'm going to call it. Those are typical on a lot of things, and a lot of these newer cars actually have this style filter. It's an internal style filter. The newer cars are starting to come out with those. Those are difficult to find on the vehicles sometimes because they're black and plastic, like a lot of the stuff on the vehicles already are. So when I did the oil change on my minivan for the first time, it was the first time I've seen one of those. I had to hop on Google and see where to find it. But so that's the oil and the filters. You'll need something to dump the oil into. So I got this enclosed oil filter drain or oil drain pan. That's where I keep all my oil. O'Reilly's, some of them will actually take your recycled oil, so that's nice because you can take it to them without spilling it. And you'll need a oil filter socket. This is for my truck. Each size varies. There's different size filters. That's not the only size, so you'll have to figure out which size you need for that. And this type of filter takes a large socket. I think they usually they can come up to 32 millimeters. But anyway, so that's what you'll need. That's the basics for doing it. So we'll get into it. Alright guys, so laying under the truck here, this is the oil pan. The oil pan is typically one of the lowest points on the engine. You have to pull the drain plug, which is usually here in the middle. Mine, it's not a bolt. It is a bolt, but it doesn't have a head on it, so it's harder to see. But it's a 3/8 socket. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna get the oil pan underneath it, and you're gonna pop that drain plug loose and let it drain. I usually go till it starts doing drips instead of a steady stream. But I know some guys who just don't want to wait the time. That's what I recommend, because then you're getting the most oil out of there you can. So I got my ratchet on there. I'm gonna pop it loose with that. You are gonna get oil on your fingers, you can't avoid it. So wear something that you don't mind getting oily. And here we go. Depending on what kind of drain pan you have, don't drop the plug like I did. Mine, it'll catch the plug and I don't have to dig through the oil for it. But some of those you end up having to dig through the oil, so try not to drop that plug if you can avoid it. Alright guys,
It's dripping now. I don't know if you can see it. It's been about 5 minutes, I think. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that plug back in, the drain plug back in, get it screwed down snug. You can strip these out. I've seen that a lot. They only need about 15 foot-pounds of torque. So basically what that translates into is normal size ratcheting wrench. You just want to get it snug but not crank on it, because if you crank on it you'll strip it out and then you'll have to change the oil pan, worst case scenario. So be careful tightening that back down. I've got a really long wrench I'm using, but I've done this a lot so I know about where to get it. So you just snug that back down. There we go. You'll feel it. You feel it get tight, and that's where you want to stop. So after that, now we're gonna do the filter. All right, guys. This is the messy part. That's my oil filter up there. I don't know if you can see it right there at the end of my finger. I've got to use ratchet and a couple extensions to get to it. Unfortunately, it's hard to see. Now this is the messy part. This is the part where you're gonna get oil all over your hands, arms, and possibly on the ground. So have some rags close by for this part. So I got my oil filter socket on there. I can feel it coming loose, so I'm gonna move my ratchet. And finish unscrewing it. And it's gonna get everywhere, I can tell already. Even though you drained your oil out the plug, there's still oil sitting in this filter. So that's why it's messy. I didn't make too much of a mess, so that's a bonus. But yeah, you get your oil filter out. Sometimes oil will drain out of there, sometimes it won't. This is draining up. If you pull it off and oil's coming out of there, go ahead and let it finish draining out of there before you stick the new filter on. These you can over tighten, and you can stick them on. You can cross thread them on accident pretty easily, so just be careful with what you're doing. So these, what you want to do is you'll screw it down until you feel it get snug, and then you'll give it just a little more turn. Basically as tight as you can get it with your hand, as long as your hand's not oily, and that's good. So that's the oil filter. Now we're going to be filling her up. So take the cap off, it's obvious. Grab yourself a funnel because otherwise you make a mess. Let me grab my oil real quick. So I know I shouldn't have to say this, but I've heard stories. Do not fill your oil up till it comes out the hole. I've heard of people doing that. That will destroy your engine. Don't do it. Figure out how many quarts your vehicle takes, and that's how many you put in there. My truck takes 15 quarts of oil because it's a diesel. But not all of them take that much oil. My minivan, for instance, takes 5.9 quarts, 6 quarts of oil. So, forgot what I was going to say now. Let's see if I can gather my thoughts real quick. Oh, this is where some people don't like doing their own oil changes. Oil change on my pickup here cost me about $100. That's because I'm buying the oil at full price. I'm buying the filter. So the benefits of that is knowing exactly what oil I am putting in my truck. That's why I do my own oil changes, because I know what I like and I know what I want to put in there. Now, I don't know how much it costs on diesels because I haven't taken this in to get an oil change, but like my minivan, it cost me $45 to do an oil change in it. If I take it to a shop, I'm going to be paying somewhere around 25 to 30, maybe 35 if I'm going for the nice synthetic stuff. But yeah, you just fill it up. I know mine takes 13 quarts. So I'm going to put 13 quarts in there and check the dipstick. On diesels, I didn't know this when I did my first oil change, so I had me a little concerned. But, so you put your oil in there, you start it up, let it get up to oil pressure, and then you're going to check your dipstick, see what it says. So first time I did my oil change in here, I started it up, went to go check the dipstick and the oil was black. I mean seconds after my oil change. So in diesels, when you change your oil and start it up, it's already black, so you can't judge your oil based off the color on diesels. But yeah, that was just a side note. So I'm gonna go ahead and check the oil now, and then I'll start the truck up and check it again. But yeah, that's it. Once you're done filling it with the oil and it looks good on the dipstick, put the cap on, you call it good. Oil changes, typical is between 3,000 and 5,000 miles between oil changes. I go 5,000 on my truck, partially because it's so expensive and partially because it's a diesel. On the minivan, I put full synthetic in, so I also go 5,000 on that. What I do is I hop in there and go to the trip A or trip B, doesn't matter, and I reset it so I know, so I keep an eye on that, know how many miles I'm putting on the oil change. But that's it. That pretty much wraps this up. This is my oil dipstick. I guess I'll show you guys that real quick. Let me get it cleaned off here. Alright, so on dipsticks, there are hash marks. The sunlight's going to mess it up. It says safe. Below it, it says add. Above it is too full. Putting too much oil in your vehicle is just as bad or worse as having it underfilled. So what I do with my vehicle is I take it 3/4 of the way up the hash marks. And that's how I know it's good. And that is 3/4 of the way up the hash marks on my dipstick. So I'm going to pop it back in there, I'm going to start it up and check it. But that wraps up this oil change. I'm going to be doing my minivan. I'll record that for you guys too, since it's a different style filter setup and it's not a diesel. So, see you guys later. Alright guys, so some side things I forgot to mention. The hash marks on your dipstick from the bottom of the hash to the top of the hash is only 1/4 of a quart. So if you got the bottom of the hash marks, don't add a whole bunch of oil. You don't need a whole bunch of oil. You need about 1/4 of a quart. Another thing that was real helpful, especially with my truck, is there it is. I wrote down the weight of oil here, and you can write the quarts down also, because I kept forgetting how much oil and what oil I needed. So I took a paint marker, just wrote it down on the minivan. The oil, the weight of the oil is on the cap, and I just know it takes 6 quarts. But you can take a paint marker anywhere on the engine. A lot of people write across the front of their valve covers, or up here on the radiator, up here on the support. Just write down what weight oil and how many quarts you need, and so you're not in there second guessing yourself. So this time that wraps it up. See you guys later.